Right to be Read podcast, episode number 102, interview with Peter Shankman.
Hey authors, wish you could just write books and forget about all this marketing and coordinating with freelancers and formatting and proofreading and stuff? You're not alone. It's every artist's dream to just be able to create art while turning over the whole business and marketing side to someone who really loves and is really great at doing just that. If you're ready to start treating your writing like a business and get an experienced publishing and marketing team behind your words, pay a visit to Archangel Inc. Archangel Inc. does absolutely everything needed to take a manuscript and turn it into a finished product ready to sell in all markets and multiple formats, from cover design to audiobook and everything in between. And as an Archangel Inc. client, you'll be able to promote your book through Buck Books, the world's fastest growing book promotion website, at no extra charge. To find out more, go to www.archangelinc.com. That's archangelinc.com.
You are listening to the Right to Be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. I'm your host, Ani Alexander, and I don't know about you, but I'm really happy that the summer is finally here and that it's sunny and hot and nice. This means that I will have my energy and productivity levels up, which sort of may help you too, because I might come up with more content and I might have more things to share with you. As for today, we have a really special guest today because I'm having an interview with Peter Shankman. The New York Times has called him a public relations all-star who knows everything about new media and then some, while Investors Business Daily has labeled him crazy but effective. Peter Shankman is a spectacular example of what happens when you merge the power of pure creativity with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and a dose of adventure and make it work to your advantage. So, an author, entrepreneur, speaker, and worldwide connector, Peter is recognized worldwide for radically new ways of thinking about customer service, social media, PR, marketing, and advertising. But before I welcome Peter, I would like to apologize for the quality of the audio because this is what happened while we were talking.
Sorry, like I said, they're doing construction right outside the window. They're building a building right across from my building.
I hope I'll be able to edit those noises out. So.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Let them finish.
Yeah, unfortunately, It's been going on like this for a week now.
Oh my God, that's terrible. So once again, apologies for a bit of noisy episode this time, but I did my best to clean things up and hopefully it won't annoy you too much. Well, let's head over and start. Well, hello Peter, thank you very much for coming over to the podcast. I really appreciate having you here.
No, glad to be here, thank you.
Well, of course, everyone knows who Peter Shankman is, but I looked through different things and I was amazed actually to come up with the fact that you are B-licensed skydiver with over 400 jumps. Do you think that this... love for adrenaline and risk-taking is something that maybe had impact on your success?
I think so. I think that, a lot of it, there's a difference between taking risks and taking calculated risks. Calculated risks are things that could work, could not work, but you have a little more awareness of how they're doing. For me, I believe that a calculated risk is worth doing. And so I'm a fan of a calculated risk.
So apparently taking those calculated risks worked really well for you, and you had a big success in different areas, and you did many things. You created companies, you sold them, you actually were the founder of help a reporter out, which was a huge initiative and something that kind of changed many things and helped people out a lot. So you being such a successful person, why did you decide to actually also write books? Because you could get along without that too, I guess. So what made you want to write books?
I think for me, it was really about the ability to share my stories and tell people what was going on and offer maybe a little bit of advice or help on how things were, what was going on in the world.
Okay, so what was your experience with writing your very first book? Which were the biggest challenges, and did you have any writer's debts in place back then? How was the process for you?
Well, for me, the biggest difficulty in writing the books is that I don't have the greatest attention span, so I tend to have to focus really, really hard to get it done. So I tend to sort of lock myself into a room and just write. I don't have any other choice.
I see. And after the first book was out, how did you feel about that? I mean, what happened? Were you from those writers who kind of check the statistics and see how many copies were sold, or you were waiting for emails from readers, or how did you address that part? Like you pushed the publish button, it was out, it was there. What happened next?
Yeah, for me, it was, my first book. I didn't really know what was going to happen. It sold a few copies, and every book has done a little bit better since then. I think that if you keep staring and trying to figure out how they're doing, every day you'll go crazy. So I just tend to write the book, publish it, then forget about it, and then from there I just maybe I'll check every 6 months or so.
Okay, so do you do anything related to those? I mean, you just publish them and forget them, or you work on the marketing of those books and do some things in order to make sure that more people know about that?
Well, I do a lot of marketing in the books for my for speaking. They're great. Books are great to get speaking gigs, and so I focus a lot on writing the books to help improve or get me more speaking gigs. That to me is a great way to utilize the book sales.
I see. So basically, the book also, besides the sharing your story through the book, it's also partly kind of a small component of the follow-up business, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, I see.
It's a great way to just get your name out there and continue to promote who you are and what you're doing.
Okay. Do you think that there is a certain thing in people's psychology that when they see a published book and they see the author, it adds up to author's credibility as an expert?
Yes, no question about it.
Okay, so
no question about it. As you if you're a published author, people definitely take you a little more seriously.
Okay, I see. And let's talk a bit about your latest book, The Zombie Loyalists. I guess the subtitle kind of describes it pretty well, saying that it's about using great service to create raving fans. And I think no matter what you do, everyone would love having raving fans. So let's say self-published authors, how should they start from the very beginning if they don't have anything in place yet? It's their very first book. What are the steps one should take in order to start creating this fan base?
I think the best thing they could do is really offer help. Whether it's a webinar, whether it's something that allows them to show what they do and how they do it without coming across as self-promoting, but offering some help that they can get value out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. And do you think that, the problem with this is you can offer help to people who already know about you somehow? I mean, what's this issue with the visibility in that case? Because you may be willing to provide value and to help people out, but those people may not be knowing about you at all.
I think that as you start to create value, people will notice it. And if it's good, people tend to share it, So they will, if you're doing great things, they will tell what's going on. They will share that.
Okay, so I guess the starting step should be finding ways to provide value and to create content that has value for people, and then do it consistently enough to get that attention at a certain point.
Correct.
Okay, I see. And also, I noticed we had this about the tweet you had in 2011, which was selected by Twitter as a top 10 tweets of the year. And it was selected out of 160 million tweets sent. So since we are talking now, it's a podcast for writers, I'm absolutely certain that it's very interesting how to come up with just 140 characters that will stand out of 160 million tweets. How did you do that?
I think the best thing you could do is know your audience, understand what your audience wants, and if you can create something that makes them feel like you're actually listening and you're actually on the same wavelength as them, they have you'll do better that way. People will want to hear what you're saying, and they'll want to share your information.
Oh, and it's quite difficult. It takes time, and what else one has to have in order to be able to understand the audience? I mean, how do you actually initiate that very first engagement with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually not that hard. You want to... People tend to like things that are similar to them. So as you start to create things, people will see what you're doing, and they'll start to follow you. Just remember that it's all about your audience. You have to be focused on your audience, and you have to give them sort of what they want. Having an audience is a privilege. It's not a right.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, it's a privilege, not a right. Yeah, absolutely. So how would one go with finding his own audience? I mean, what's the direction? Do you usually kind of think that the right way is to come up with a type of audience you want to reach out to and to have around you, and then start creating content that is relevant to them? Or you'd rather kind of be true to yourself and write about things you're passionate about, and then the audience which is also interested in those topics should come to you? I mean, which approach is best to start with?
If you write about things that are interesting to you, that's important, because people will wind up, you'll be more passionate about the writing, and people will want to see who as you write that stuff and as you create it, if you're passionate about it, people will follow it, and they will see what you're doing, and they will be. That's where they'll start to follow you, is if they really see your passion.
Mm-hmm. I see. And many have this problem. I mean, many of the writers I've been speaking to, they kind of tell me the space, like the internet, is so crowded, and there are so many people out there creating so much content, and there is so much noise around, that it's very difficult to kind of stand out. So what should one look for, and what should be the differentiating point? What should one think about in order to come up with something that will be noticeable in that huge volume of content out there?
Well, you have to figure out what your audience wants, and that comes from understanding who they are. And, people tell me, they say, how do I get, how do I find my audience? How do I know my audience more? I can't tell you that. The only thing I can tell you is that you have to learn from them and learn about them. Once you're able to do that, then you can give them the information they want. But, you have to understand them to understand how they like to get their information and what they want before you start putting it out there. The best way to do that is simply to listen to them.
Mm-hmm, I see. And actually, how important do you think is opening up as a person, kind of, in all that noisy space, in all those social network channels? How important is how much you show your true self and how much you share about your personality out there?
I think it is important. You definitely have to show yourself and show who you are, and you have to be willing to be open.
Mm-hmm. And is that, I mean, many people kind of, due to different reasons, maybe they're like introverts, or maybe they are just not used to opening up and showing themselves and putting themselves out there. Is there any way to kind of, those who are not very comfortable about that, to learn, maybe slowly getting used to it?
Just start with the basics. Start by introducing yourself. Start by saying what you find interesting, what you like, things like that. You don't have to. You don't have to go, full naked in the first 5 seconds. Just start talking a little bit, and over time you'll find that comfortable balance.
Mm-hmm, I see. And what about when we look at social media? We have so many options around. I mean, and most of them are so different. Many people feel kind of overwhelmed in terms of, when once they get online, and, many writers might be writing their books without having online presence yet. And once they realize they need to, and they get into that, they feel overwhelmed and don't really know which channel to pick, where to start, and what to do. So what would you advise those people? I mean, what do they do in this case?
Find one channel and start with it. Find out where your audience is, use that channel, and focus your energy on that only. From there, you can continue to grow, but you want to start and have one basic thing you're good at, and from there you can continue on.
Okay, so just pick one channel and go with it until you're really good at it, and then only start diversifying into others?
Correct.
Okay, I see. And what about when you're having your books out there and you're getting your speaking engagements from them, and you're getting your story out, and you're having readers providing feedback to that book and getting in touch with you about those? How do you feel about the feedback? I mean, how much importance and role do you put on the feedback you're getting from readers? Do you go ahead and maybe change and modify things based on that? Or, how is your approach when you're getting, let's say, a criticism or a praise or things like that from people? How do you approach that?
For me, it's I take everything I get into immediate account. I listen to what people are saying. I listen to how they, what they're looking for information. Sometimes I go into a conference before I'm supposed to speak, and I don't wear a name tag, and I just talk to people who don't recognize me, and I ask them what they're hoping to get out of the conference.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, great. And that is, I guess, the way of, when you repeat it several times, that it's about knowing your audience. So that's one of the ways to go ahead and see and know about your audience better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Yeah, learning your audience is again the most important thing. If you can go into a talk and you can talk to your audience and they feel like they're really connecting with you, you're having a much better communications than you would be otherwise.
So how much time are you spending engaging with your audience?
Every speech I do is all about engagement. Everything I do is about talking and communicating and coordinating and making sure my audience knows me and listens to me. It's a nonstop process. It's every day. And
what about social media? Do you spend too much time there?
I spend a lot of time on social. Yeah, it's definitely part of what I do. But again, it's just one arrow in the quiver of marketing and promoting myself.
So how do you stay, how do you manage to get the balance in between personal interaction, in between creating stuff, in between being online and the speaking engagements and your businesses and everything together? How do you manage to stay productive, and how do you manage your time?
I have a great assistant, and I also have I set up very important, rigid standards for myself. I have, when you have ADD, it's very important to set up protocols and standard operating procedures and things you do every day to make sure that you're not losing focus. It's very important to not lose focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. And when we go back, like to the very beginning, let's say, do you remember that point, like that period when you realize that things started working for you finally, and you're really getting closer to where you would like to be, where, when, and what kind of situation you were at when you realized that this is it, it's going forward?
I think every day you just got to keep hustling and keep moving forward. And if at the end of every day you say, okay, I did a little better than the day before, then that's a win. That's successful.
Mm-hmm. And when I don't know, I have a feeling that everyone has those periods when for a certain time you don't really see the immediate results. So it's kind of, you are moving forward slowly, but you don't really see results, tangible results that could encourage you. So you depend on your self-motivation. So in those periods, what keeps you moving forward? What helps you out most?
I think for me, it really is just the ability to keep working and keep trying and keep, you can't go backwards. You have to keep moving forward somehow.
Okay. And in the periods when you don't see the results and you keep moving forward, do you keep the same direction, or you pivot, or I don't know. I mean, how do you realize whether the results are not there because it's not the time yet? It's too early to see the results, or it's simply because you're doing something wrong? How one could understand which case it is?
I think at the end of the day, you have to learn whatever you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you can improve it. And occasionally there comes a time where you have to say, okay, you know what? I've done my best. It's not working. It's time to move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, you know what? This isn't working. It's time to do something new.
Okay, so it's not really, many people feel like they failed, but it's not really that way, right? So
no, failure is great. I love failure. Failure is great because it teaches you how to improve. I love failure. I'm a huge fan of failure.
Okay, so you every failure kind of leaves a lesson and teaches you something. Is that it?
Yeah, totally. If show me someone who hasn't failed, I'll show you someone who's never really tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. So, did you have many failures in life?
Oh yeah, everyone does. I have no problem with failure. Failure is a good thing. Failure means that you're actually trying to do something, working your ass off. I'm a big believer in failure.
And is there something which is not directly related to your work, but helps you with achieving big and successful results in your work?
Exercise.
Exercising.
Yeah, I find that when I exercise, it helps me get back in focus.
Okay, so we do need to to have something like, being at work and doing work all the time might eventually give much worse results than taking a break and doing something else.
Yep.
Okay,
no
I
question.
see. So let's talk about help a reporter out in that case. I was just wondering, how did you get this idea, and how did it started with a Facebook group, right?
Mm-hmm, that is correct.
So how did you manage to make something so big later on from just a small Facebook group?
Again, word of mouth. It really just started growing, and people started using it, and the more it started building, people seemed very into it. It was pretty amazing how quickly it grew, but it definitely blew up. It was pretty exciting.
So how did you come up with the idea?
I know a lot of reporters, and they asked for help, and I wound up having to put these two people together, connecting them, and over time that just turned into what it was. It was never planned,
mm-hmm.
But it really became something big.
Okay, so can we say that regardless what you're doing, actually, if you really listen to your audience and if you see the opportunity and take this calculated risk of just, doing that thing, chances are big that that thing will kind of grow and bring good results.
No question about it. Yep, big believer in that.
So that's basically like the basic. I mean, if you really simplify things, that's what it comes back to.
Always. Yep. Always.
Okay. So what about when your books, when you wrote your first book, did you have this dilemma about self-publishing and traditional publishing? How did you approach that part?
No, my first book was the company that published it actually reached out to me and asked me and said, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" And so I was sort of like, "Okay, well, that's easy." And then that's it's kind of nice when they come to you. It makes it a lot easier.
Okay, yeah. And was it like, did you imagine it the way it was, or it appeared to be harder to write a book or easier than you thought?
It wasn't difficult. The only real key was just to make sure that I actually constantly took the time to do it. Again, for me and my ADD, you tend to forget stuff like that. So for me, it was just about making the time, making sure I actually got everything done as it was supposed to happen.
And later on, the other books, all of them have been traditionally published, or you self-published eventually?
No, they've all been published by publishers.
They've all been okay. And are you happy with that process? It takes off most of the things you need to do, I guess.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's not great. It's not terrible. The publishing business is a business. It's not the greatest business, but it is what it is. So you wind up doing the best you can, and getting the best information you can, and trying to get the best deal you can. And it's rigged to make sure that publishers make more money than you do. But it is what it is. You do the majority of the work, but it's still worth it.
And many who kind of, who are advocating self-publishing, the biggest thing they say is that traditional publishers don't really do a lot in terms of marketing your book, and you could do it better. So what was your experience? Were you involved yourself as well in the marketing of the book, or you kind of...
Oh, yeah, I wrote a huge website for it. No question about it, yeah.
Okay, so you had kind of partnership in that respect. You did it together and you had good results.
Correct.
Okay, I see. Okay, and if we get back to newbie authors, let's say, and especially someone since you're kind of you have a big expertise in the PR sphere. What in respect of PR, what an author should make sure that he does in order to have a certain success with his books? What is that something that one shouldn't forget in that respect?
At the end of the day, remember to be humble. Remember to be. You have to have humility. You have to understand that you're not as great as you think you are. Stay humble. Never believe your own press.
Yeah, and I guess that would be much better perceived than, if you end up just saying what you think, if you think too much of yourself.
Yep, exactly. You need to stay humble.
Okay, and when we go back to your large audience, what were it grew eventually with the time, it grew with all the engagements you had, with all the interactions you had, and all the valuable content you put out there. So which were the elements and the components of the things you did which helped you most and you had best results with gaining new audiences?
I think for me it was about coming up with stories that the audience relates to, things that they understand. For customer service, it's the concept of little things, how we're treated in stores. Everyone has those experiences. Everyone can relate to those experiences. So it's about keeping those experiences understandable for your audience.
Mm-hmm. Like real life examples.
Exactly, things that they'll relate to. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I see. And how long did it take for you to get where you are, in terms of time? How many years?
I'd say since I started doing this stuff in 98, so 98 to 15, almost 20 years, 17 years.
17 years. Okay, and do you think that, I mean, was there something that you wished you started doing earlier?
I think for me, it was really just about, I wish I'd had more faith in myself in the beginning, and believed in myself more.
Okay, so in that case, if someone was in your position and we have someone, let's say, who doesn't believe in himself, what is that? I mean, not everyone has that person or those people around who could encourage and kind of, put him back into track. What is something that could help eventually that person?
I think the goal is to understand that every day is a new chance to reinvent yourself. Every day is a new chance to create something better. That's the goal.
Okay, so once you started believing in yourself, things started moving faster?
Yeah, definitely. You need to believe in yourself. No one else is going to.
Okay, but the funny thing is, but once you start believing in yourself, everyone else starts doing the same.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know. Any last advice to people out there who are just starting, who eventually would like to get where you are, who are looking forward to this journey and are a bit lost?
The goal is just to have fun. At the end of the day, the goal is simply to have fun. Have a good time in what you're doing, enjoy it, and have fun.
Enjoy the process. Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you very much for the interview. Thanks a lot. I mean, I hope it wasn't very... I mean, I was a bit distracted, so I wasn't really at my best today.
I think you did great.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, it seems like that was it for today. Thank you very much for listening to this show. Please subscribe on iTunes to the podcast to make sure that you don't miss any episode and to help me grow the podcast and have more people get encouraged and inspired by listening to it. Very, very soon, actually on July 1st, is the 1-year anniversary of the Right to Be Right podcast, and I'm preparing surprises and really cool things coming up for July 1st, so keep tuned, and very, very soon I'll be sharing all the things I've planned for you for the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So take care, have a nice day, and I'll meet you in the next episode.